Welcome to Enlightened AF, and I am one of your hosts. My name is Tricia Carr. Aidan, turn your phone off.
Oh, I love it. Look at, now we're streaming live. Can't we listen to us? Hi, I'm Aidan Demarest. Working the magic box. Hey, look, I'm like only cut off up there.
Would you be? We are on a live show right now.
I just got my clothes back on.
Thank God.
There's all sorts of stuff.
Oh,
Let me get all my stuff off. Hi, welcome.
All
Welcome
right.
back.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, I'm having to be the eyes, ears, and nose of this operation.
This is like I think it's our 9th show.
Is it?
Well, it might be our 10th because we did our sneak preview one. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Because I can't hear me very well.
Thank you.
I guess it's better than like a few weeks ago. When was it? A few weeks ago, where halfway through the show, which, by the way, if you listen to us in the archive, if you listen to us on iTunes, I edited that part out. But yeah, we just half the show. You know, we did this show live, and we just didn't have sound going out live, and that happened.
Did that continue to happen ever? I mean, when you watched it later, was it still?
Yeah, no, yeah.
It never had sound?
No, well, actually, Aaron, our producer,
retrieved it?
Well, no, Aaron, he records it at the same time. So it got what was coming into the microphones. It just wasn't coming out live. So anyway, all of that is to say that you can watch us live by following us on Facebook. And also on, well, we don't have Twitter yet. So just find us at Enlightened AF.
We
have a group.
Teenager, we'll get a Twitter account.
You have like 5 teenagers.
I know, but they're not working for me. Zero. I get nothing out of them.
You can watch us live if you follow us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/groups/Enlightened AF, I think.
But most people, when they get out of work, are probably listening later on YouTube, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
YouTube.
Find Enlightened AF podcast, and
I feel like that's where most of the. Yeah, I know.
If you're watching live, then you can.
If you have a job.
If you're watching live. But there are people who, this is 4 p.m. Pacific.
Right, so Eastern Standard.
Yeah, those people could have jobs and then be watching us. You can actually Chromecast us to your television set. Oh, Aidan loves that. He wants to be Chromecasted to his 80 your 80 inches.
Chromecast.
Oh, okay. We should address. You're already used to it. You already did all of your fun making of me.
Can we please? Are we not going to talk about this?
We can.
Tricia had a crazy busted up weekend in Vegas this weekend.
That's so fun.
Still rolling.
If you're not watching live, what we're referring to is the fact that I'm wearing sunglasses right now. Which, by the way, I forgot, what are they? They're really fancy. Aren't they pretty? They're Chanel. That's what they are.
I feel like it's like I feel like you're like star 80. You're rocking that like dead Playboy bunny look.
Oh, that's so sad. Thank you as well.
That's hot. There's nothing hotter than a Playboy bunny dead.
They didn't have any. I don't think they had any Playboy bunnies that had baggy tops like this. They would be filling them out.
It's the glasses and the whole thing.
And
the
the blonde
Kate Hudson thing happening. I like it.
So I had eye surgery yesterday.
So less sexy.
They ripped off my lens and slapped on there a fake lens. You like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then in 2 weeks, I get to do it again with the other one. But it's so very much like The Wizard of Oz when it went from black and white to color, because so I had damaged lenses. Bless you. I had damaged lenses. They're cataracts. Yes. Oh. I'm very young. I'm very young for an I'm very young for an 80-year-old. At the doctor, they keep talking about how young I am, and it's because I have a totally different kind of cataract than old people get, but the kind that I have, people don't usually get at all. So I have young person's cataracts, and
which is not a bonus.
And it's still not hot. And that means that basically it's like I've been looking through mud smeared windows. Well, actually, not just mud smeared, but also like with, when you get a rock in your windshield and then eventually it starts to spider really fast. That's been my last 2 years. So yeah, driving's not been.
I hate it, but I loved your analogy about how you see things now as opposed to before, and also how you could take in my good looks for the first time.
I did.
That to me was the best part, because it warmed my heart thinking that you actually just liked me for me. And most people, I think, are seeing all this.
I
Do
actually.
we have a caller? Is that what I'm hearing?
We do,
Because
we
we
do.
have a caller.
No, we don't.
Damn it.
Oh, I thought we did. But you can call in if you're listening live, 323-524-2599.
I don't like just talking all the time, but for some reason the caller thing just sort of invigorates me. So call back again if we lost you. And we're also sort of terrible at holding on to them, aren't we?
No,
I'm not gonna
well,
blame Aaron entirely, but a little.
no, yes, it's totally Aaron's fault because he's supposed to be holding them by the scruff.
I don't know. They just seem to evaporate.
Well, let's go ahead
killing
and
him off.
let's go ahead and talk about what you wanted to talk about today:
Our topic.
vampires
It
and
was a little
narcissists.
soon anyway.
What did you say?
It was a little soon for us to dive into a caller.
I guess you're right.
I
Because,
think.
well, I don't know. Let's see what we never know what they want to talk to us about.
So anyway, yes,
okay.
it's Halloween, and Tricia and I, as we do every week, we're on point. And nowadays, actually, we planned something on this show.
We did. And so we want to talk about vampires and also narcissists. And I think because what's interesting is we came up with the topic yesterday when after I had my eye surgery, and I had one eye that was extremely dilated. So one eye looked black and the other eye looked, sky blue. And I sent the picture to Aidan, and then we talked about it. And then we were like, well, let's do vampires. Did you make that connection? We didn't actually make the connection when we were talking about it.
I might have just been feeling so sucked dry by the current vampires in my life that
Well, vampires
I
are
mean
real.
that in a bad way, not a good one.
Vampires are real in so much as energy vampires as something that humans do to each other and, other things. But they're also real in a metaphysical sense that there are entities who behave as such, less physical entities who behave as such, where they would be draining life force energy. And that's why I think in lore, where vampires are actually, they suck out blood because it's like the life blood. It's just the energy instead of the actual blood. There aren't really, I think there are maybe a couple of species who would actually drink other like their own blood, but I don't know for sure if that's true, biologically
Just even
speaking.
as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about how I always realize all films, all movies, male and female characters, whenever it's a vampire, there's a sort of attractive, super sexy vibe to them.
Oh, yeah.
So
totally.
culturally, we definitely identify a super sexy draw and pull. Like they're irresistible. People fall under their prey, not because they're so strong, because they don't usually, like only recently do they have superhuman strength. They usually had like mind manipulate.
Yeah.
Like the whole story, the whole lore is kind of, I think, based on real life vampires that are walking around.
It's on a rescue fantasy, I think. Everybody wanting
Yeah.
to be rescued. People not really growing up from giving their sovereignty over to mommy and daddy. And mommy and daddy maybe betraying that trust of being the proper authority. And then, wanting to be rescued. So if you are under someone's spell and they can control you, and then that experience is exquisite of them actually consuming you, then you don't have
whole
to
New
be.
Orleans house with the like big wraparound porch and like cape situation.
Yeah.
Glowing up all night.
I always loved vampires when I was a kid.
Hell yeah.
Actually, one of my cats is named after a vampire.
Yeah.
Barnabas Collins.
Okay.
My cat Barnabas is named Barnabas Collins Carr.
So in the less sort of fictional character way,
Yeah.
how do you, since we can identify them, and I don't think we need to do a lot of description about what they are, because I think everybody can relate to that. How do you, knowing what you know, sort of identify, coexist, and enjoy / protect yourself from vampires?
Well, first of all, I think the answer always is that you are sovereign and your agency is your own. So regardless of the fact that you are around someone who does this, where they actually leech and sort of quote unquote steal energy or life force energy, it's still your agreement to it. Now, the thing that's tricky about that is that it's often on a subconscious level. And so that means deep awareness then, to be able to have possession over, so deeply aware of yourself and who you are, that even if something started to prick into your subconscious portion of your awareness, then you would still feel the toppling. You know what I mean? Like you would still, it's kind of like the Princess and the Pea. Remember that fairy tale? She could feel even though she was on, several mattresses high bed, she could still feel the pea because she was so sensitive and she was so aware and she was so attuned.
I just thought of the word contract. Like you sign a contract with a vampire almost,
Yeah.
and you do fictionally, but you really do like almost and I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are like in a contract with a vampire, and not just a legal document, but like they have set up an established protocol that has created a contract with somebody, employer, neighbor, anybody. And that is really, I think, how vampires operate. They set up this contract where you are responsible.
And I'll tell you actually that there is, this is a real thing where there are people who are walking around and this is how they function. But besides it being people, there's actually, there was a study I heard about. I actually heard David Wilcock talking about it, just to give attribution. He was talking about this scientific study, a real scientific study, where they put fish eggs together in the same space, older ones and younger ones. And the younger
You mean
ones...
caviar.
Yes, exactly. Some kind of fish egg situation. The younger ones could, I think it was the younger ones could, let's say one group could leach the energy out of the other one. And so that then the other group started to actually deteriorate and started to perish. So then the next thing that they did was they put them in separate containers, but where they had, if they had eyes, they had visual contact. It was still basically a transparent but separate place. It still happened. So they still had awareness of the other set, and the leeching, the vampirism still happened. And then they moved them to where there was no awareness, like it was opaque enough or whatever, so that they didn't understand that they were close by and didn't share the space enough so that they could see, feel, hear, experience one another, and it didn't happen. But they were still in the same room. So awareness alone of the other, and it didn't have to do with locality.
Yeah, they didn't even have to be around. Oh,
Exactly.
that's for
Didn't have to
sure.
be
I would say
physically
today I
proximate.
spent the whole day being sort of vampired by people who weren't around. You know what I mean? Like, so that, like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that is because of you have energy cords, you have etheric cords.
And exactly, and it's a two-way street. It's why whenever I hear somebody talking in my meetings or whatever, and good friends and family, and they're talking about somebody in particular, and when I do this, when I just keep going on and on about a boss, a client, a relationship that is, that I have this like sort of that is dragging me or whatever, it is so clear that to me and when I'm listening to somebody else that they, that we have invited this. And that's not to say invited victimhood.
You've agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've agreed to this contract, and it's really that contract you're pissed at, not even the person.
Right. Well, and the thing is that
Snap the cord.
identifying to victimhood and sort of romanticizing it the way that the vampire
If it was a
lore
super
does.
hot vampire sexy scene with like a group situation, like that whole thing, I'm in. I have been
my
to that
gosh.
party and I am on board.
There was a scene in
Suck
True
me
Blood.
dry.
Did you watch True Blood? You did, right?
Of course.
Yeah. There was a scene in True Blood that was just too far.
Hopefully.
Where they were, some vampires had killed some humans, and then they were like, the bed was
Doing
just
it on top of the body.
in the blood.
Yes.
It was so
Okay,
gross.
I'm into that.
It was so
Why is,
disgusting.
but you remembered it. There's a contract you made.
Oh, because I almost
It's in the
vomited.
spank
It was
bank.
gross.
It's in the
Ew.
spank bank.
No. It's not in my rub hub. No.
Oh, I like the rub hub
Yeah.
even better.
Yeah. The rub out dugout.
Oh, the
Sorry,
rub hub.
How about the rub out dugout?
I love that you have
The
a
spank
rub
tank?
hub. Spank tank.
Come on, you got any? Come on. Spank tank just came to me.
I like spank tank. But okay, now I'm jumping.
He just butt. That's his. That's all he says is
I
butt.
got butt. Sometimes that ends up there. Okay, last night I watched this thing, Stranger, I forget the documentary.
No.
It's a documentary about these twins that were born in the 60s,
Okay.
who were separated at birth.
Uh-huh.
It was on, the Magic Box where you get a movie.
Netflix probably.
Yes, that kind of thing. It was Strange. Aaron, you must know this. It's like the triplets in Jersey, in New York, that got separated at birth. And God, I forget.
Just tell the story.
Anyway, whatever. It's this thing about how they get separated at birth, and these guys were all exactly the same. I watched this whole. It's a documentary film, and it is. They all got separated at birth, and then it turns out that the agency that their parents got them from had separated a whole bunch of these Jewish orphans. In the 60s in New York, so not like World War II kind of situation, and just to sort of do a case study.
Oh, they did a lot of crap like that in the 60s and 70s. They started really messing with gender then too, cutting kids' things off and stuff, saying maybe gender is just
World War II,
conditioned.
Like, sort of weird Nazi testing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a concentration camp survivor psychologist who spearheaded this program.
Mm-hmm.
And the fallout that the kids had, these little kids were separated and all super aware of each other. But the trippy part was seeing them reunited over the years. They were in the 80s. In 1980, they were reunited, and like they were exactly the same. They weren't just kind of. It wasn't like, oh, there's like twins. They look a lot alike.
Yeah.
Their mannerisms and everything were so much alike, which is such a and then there was the nurture versus nature thing.
Well, and that's the thing. It's all about awareness. And it's so when I was just talking about the fish eggs, and I was saying they don't really have to be proximate in so far as location is concerned, but it has to be proximate so far as awareness is concerned. So you can have awareness of Syria and basically empathically take on that pain.
Yeah.
Or you can have energetic sort of proximate awareness of your friend or your neighbor. Like you start to synchronize your breathing patterns and your heart rate and all that with your neighbors. And yes, you do. It's crazy. I know.
Don't want to think that.
But the cool part about it is the one that is more vital is the one that is synchronized too. So if you're healthy and raising your awareness and raising your health overall, your neighbors are offered. They actually will come to you. I mean, they can obviously continue to really fight against it and have the resistance against it. But again, it's all kinds of proximity. It could be the thing is the reason it's basically awareness proximity, but it is normal and natural for a physical human to have heightened awareness of someone who is physically local to you. You see, so you have heightened awareness because you're close.
Yeah.
Or you just have emotional awareness of someone whenever you choose to. So location isn't really the reason that it plays into it.
Let me think about this, because I thought about our show. We had talked about the show yesterday, and my connection to this, I hear what you're saying with that. Like, like that means that, you're picking up on so much, but these three kids had been separated by hundreds of miles, right? So as we talk about it, and I really get in touch with the fact that there's a lot more going on than just my physical matter, and that I have been connected to a whole lot of things. Then I watched this documentary, so that made me immediately think, okay, you and I discuss with other people all of the various ways that the universe has provided me with thoughts, impulses, inspiration, all those things, and this study was proving that these three kids' DNA was all they ever had. They would have been the exact same thing no matter what planet we dropped them on, what universe, whether they were a unicorn or a Porky the Pig.
But here's the thing.
They were flying in the face of everything we say with that study.
Is that also that there's something called epigenetics. So epigenetics observes that people who grow up with adoptive families, so not blood related to their families, will manifest the same genetic diseases as their adoptive families. So how do you like that?
Well, okay, yeah, I hear that.
So again, that's awareness and beliefs.
There was almost zero based on the three different families. This family did, and it was my impression of it, but there was almost zero. They tried to at the end sort of make it seem like the three families had an impact on the three kids. Their lives had been very similar from very broad range families. Yeah. They had spread them out over a middle class, a working class, and an upper class across New York. And they had very broad childhoods, except for they gave them another sibling exactly the same age. Anyway, my point is that their genetics, their diet, all their stuff didn't change any of their trajectory.
Right.
Not one iota.
I understand.
They were the same guy.
Well, of course, it's still a limited look into it. They're not the same guy.
They were almost identical, the same guy, and the same wife, and the same. Cigarette pack, everything.
Well, okay, I have some observations about that from my perspective, from the metaphysical perspective, and that is that the intentions that were put in on a soul level coming into this experience, this physical experience, are very strong. Now, there was the people trying to, the powers that be that tried to actually intervene and separate that. So in a way, they were always seeking out that timeline in which the three of them actually grew up together.
Oh, okay.
And if they did do that, if they had grown up together, they probably would have done more individuation because they would have been seeking outside that timeline, the one where they are together, experiencing how they're alike. Since they were forced to experience how they were dissimilar, but it was forced, they were constantly seeking the echo of the timeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was almost reiterated. That's funny because you haven't seen it. And
Nope.
that woman, one of the aunts who's speaking, says almost that they became so much alike because of their separation. And that's funny you say that because she actually echoed that. And she said that thing. And it was just interesting, especially as a parent, and having, like, I raised my kids out here with people that my children have never met. I mean, without people that I grew up with that then either died or they never knew. And my kids have a ton of them in them. And it's not just me seeing Uncle Jimmy and somebody or something like that. I mean, my daughter and sons have so many things that, first of all, her grandparents on their mother's side that they never knew. They have a ton of, I mean, like, literally expressions and mannerisms that are genetic. They didn't get them from me or their mom.
And I think that it's
a trip.
It's unfortunate that we ascribe to genetics something that we don't ascribe to other things that are just code as well. Genetics, DNA, that's just a code. It's just a program, and there are other ways that we have programming.
The voice was one of the things on the guys. The guys had the exact same voice. When they called each other for the first time, they all were freaked out and hung up the phone. And now a voice, I know, because we can go anywhere with a voice up and da-da-da.
Yeah.
Like I always considered a voice something that you sort of chose, that you sort of got to pick the tonality of where you were headed. Certainly the inflection, the tonality. And these guys sounded like the same human.
Right.
And they were 20 when they met, or 19.
Well, I see when I'm sometimes walking along, I don't see my mother. I mean, not that that sounds really extreme. I just don't see her. I've seen her once in 15 years. We just don't see each other. We communicate and everything.
Yeah.
But I haven't spent time around her very much. But every now and again, I'll see my shadow walking along the sidewalk, and I'm like, oh, that's my mom at my age.
Fuck. I do the same. I go by a window and I'm like, oh my God.
But my body
dad.
is constructed just like hers. You know what I mean? So
but
it makes
it's not
sense.
even. It's the movement.
It's how stiff my hips are and everything. It just looks so much like my mom. It really annoys me. Okay, but I want to get back to...
It sucks because it's probably the part that people really like about you.
Yeah. I want to get back to not only that, but I have two different feet. One of my friends says I'm a chimera. I have two totally different feet. One is this, they're a whole size different and they're completely different shaped. And the big old fat giant left one is my sister Pam's foot. It looks just like Pam's foot and it drives me crazy.
Literally on a nuclear power plant waste site in, like, what was it?
We
the
weren't-
Adirondack?
we
where,
weren't
like,
that
just
fancy.
Like, it's not that fancy. It's not. They didn't even bother to bury shit in our yard.
It was Wonder Bread Twinkies and Virginia Slims. That's menthol. That's what my mother smoked.
Oh, excellent. And you're like stirring up that Captain Crunch every morning with a menthol cigarette.
Oh, I'm going to vomit. Okay. No, I want to get back to vampires.
Vampires.
Okay, so we're talking about
And
energetic
it's
vampires.
Halloween this month, by the way.
We are. But I want to tell you that there are people who actually are vampires in this kind of antiquated sense. There are some people, who do the dumb thing where they try to drink blood, and that's extremely unhealthy. And I'm sure you can find some TLC shows where they're doing that. But there are other people who don't do it that way. But there's this book called The Vampire Codex.
I used to joke all the time, I'll jump in there, that if a vampire flew in my house, it would just be dead right next to me. Because it would have just been like it would just pass out immediately. I'd be like, bring it on.
Because he was so wasted, is what he's
Just
saying.
full of all the drugs. They
Yeah,
would have
all
just
the
like tried
drugs.
to take off out the window and just been like,
All right, but let me tell you. So there are people there is a perspective of people who believe that they have this ancient metaphysical, spiritual kind of calling upon their lives to be vampires. And they say it is a balance to society because there are people who have too much energy, have too much life force. And so they're actually doing them a favor by leeching their life force energy from them. Because otherwise, if you have too much, it becomes stagnant, it becomes built up.
okay.
But they actually...
And I don't even mind that because
Congregate.
I don't even mind that this is a crazy story because they are as creepy as real vampires
Totally.
in the fact that they believe it. So it's actually creepier than somebody who flew in the window and bit my neck.
And so some of them, and here's the book that I read at least, and they actually organize themselves in these ancient, I can't remember what their terminology is, but like houses and orders and everything, like super primeval kind of weird stuff, and certain order of this house. And they have some that are willing
I think a
victims.
Red Onion in Covina is definitely the mothership of that whole situation.
Red Onion, what is that? Like
It's
a strip
restaurant.
club? Oh.
Look at you. You're
Sounds
such
like a
snob.
strip club. I always just
She
assumed
made
it's
a
a strip
big
club.
jump from the trailer park. She's never been to any mid-level restaurants.
We never lived in a trailer park.
Just Arby's and Spago, nowhere in between.
And so there are people who have this spiritual beliefs, the spiritual practice of being a vampire, and they have some people who are willing victims or willing, I guess I don't know what else to call it besides victims. And then others, they think they just kind of take matters in their own hand because they don't think that they know better, they know well enough. And so there are people who they sort of victimize who don't realize that they're leeching their excess energy.
And it's just energy.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
so then that is what we're talking about, and I can,
I know, but there are people that like kind of hold the culture very seriously, like a religion.
Really?
Yeah, and they
what's
believe
it called? Are they called vampires? Or
Yeah, they call them vampires. So you could look up this book called The Vampire Codex, and she really goes deep into it. And so, but here's the thing we also wanted to talk about. So there's one thing that's really interesting about vampires and vampirism. But there is, we also like to flip it on the other side and again talk about how if someone is unwittingly doing this, or more like a narcissist or whatever, that there is always someone who is indulging them. There's no true victims because we create our own reality.
Yeah.
By the way, when we were prepping for the show and Aidan wanted to start to talk about, he was like, what is that word? What's that word? You know that word? It's like a Greek word. I can't remember what it is because I am it. It's that word. It's not like arrogant. It's not, what is it? Is that,
Totally.
And I was like,
that doesn't come to me even now.
narcissist.
What's that?
It's narcissist.
What's that?
He couldn't remember it because he is it. That's what he said.
Well, and then I said, I don't understand why that word's gotten such a bad rap.
Exactly.
It's true. Why has that word gotten such a bad rap?
I know. I totally know what you mean, but it's still hilarious.
We talked about the story.
Everybody else is laughing. So
Really?
I'm laughing with them.
I'm like, why is this a bad thing? I didn't even know it was a negative thing until it started getting bandied around in my divorce. Fuck. You're welcome. A lot of people went to a lot of trouble to put this together. Fuck. Anyway, tell me the downswings of vampirism and narcissism.
The downswings? What do you mean? Or the upswings?
Well, no. Tell me the upswings.
Oh, because you don't understand why it's bad.
I don't even know.
Okay.
Now we're just getting Latin.
Well, here's the deal: is that I do agree with you.
Oh, that's the other word I couldn't think of. Exclusive.
Monogamy. That's the word.
I got that one. But exclusive. I was like, wait, what?
What do you mean?
What are we, a Macy's?
With your
We're shutting
marriage?
down that department?
In your marriage?
Well, just any relationship. Like a word exclusive. I was like, wait, what? What does that mean?
It's kind of a negative. It's very negative,
yeah,
actually.
don't you think?
Yeah, we're excluding people.
I'm not exclusive.
I'm enlightened, dude.
It's like an exclusive sale. That means it's like a private salon happening where you get to fuck me on the side. Like there's an exclusive sale happening this weekend.
So I actually read this book called Rethinking Narcissism.
There's lots of people not laughing at that.
Rethinking Narcissism by the author's name is Dr. Craig Malkin, Malkin. I've actually mentioned it on Charmed Life too.
Yeah, tell me about that because that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. So here's the thing: the basic definition of narcissism.
I'm not validating narcissism. I'm just because I love it, but
there is narcissistic personality disorder. That's totally different. And you're right that the word narcissism has been sort of become a bit popular,
especially with Trump and all this discussion.
Yes, and there is something there is a disordered version of narcissism. But the basic definition of narcissism is deriving gratification from feeling special. Everybody should have some of that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're right. No, exactly.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you.
Would you say to your kid, don't feel special. Don't feel like you're the most important person in the world.
Yeah.
Don't feel any of those things.
Don't feel unique. Don't feel
have
talented.
pride in your appearance. Don't have pride in your
talents or
abilities.
Your intelligence.
Where is this line where we could create this sort of like?
Well, Dr. Craig Malkin in Rethinking Narcissism, because I'm deriving from this material to make sure it's a really great book. Actually,
I'm gonna check it out.
It's not like a textbook.
Melky.
It's a good read. So he basically talks about it as a scale. So from 1 to 10. Now the other side of the scale.
Like a Kinsey thing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So 5 would be due neutral, I guess. And if we put narcissistic personality disorder up at 10. So 5 through 10 is...
I think I'm about a 7 on both.
Yeah, maybe you fluctuate in there. no, but from
Depends on the weekend.
4 to 1 would be the other side of the scale. And so I was telling you about this. What's really interesting that Malkin points out in his book is what the word narcissist is actually based upon a Greek legend of a character named Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection and then fell into a river and drowned because he was so in love with himself. Well, there's actually another important character in that tale, and that is someone called Echo. And so the other side of the scale of a narcissist is an echoist. You see, Echo was this wood nymph, I think she was, and she was cursed by this goddess because she wouldn't shut up. She put a curse on her so that she couldn't really speak her truth because she wouldn't stop speaking her truth. And so she fell in love with Narcissus, like everybody did, because he was so gorgeous. And now Aidan's going to start posturing like, so the whole world affirmed, or at least gave Narcissus his beliefs, and Echo fell in love with him, and every time she tried to call out her love for him, he would say, "Who's there?" And she'd go, "Who?" And he's like,
it was his echo.
Yeah, so she was all she would do is echo him. So he started, and he said, "Show yourself," and she said, "Yourself. Who are you? You." And so she just kept echoing parts of what he would say, which led him to believe, because he was falling in love with her energy as he heard her, but he couldn't identify who she was. So he believed, as she was echoing back to him by feeling that energy, that it was himself that he was falling in love with. So she actually contributed to his demise because she couldn't or wouldn't speak her truth.
Yeah.
So you see, so this tale of Narcissus and Echo, if you are a narcissist, you also have an echoist who could be partnering with you. So the echoist is enabling you to do this thing that is disordered. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
How can he? So he has a couple of really great examples where this woman who, her boyfriend wanted to take her out to dinner, and she just couldn't tolerate the idea of having that much attention. And so she was like, "I don't know, you just pick." And he was like, "You never let me do anything for you. You never let me treat you nicely." And so it really broke his heart, you see.
I don't think there's a woman, and this is definitely a man-woman discussion, and it can obviously transcend to a lot of different people, but I don't think that there's a woman out there who doesn't feel she dated or had a destructive relationship with a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wonder how much of that, and myself included, with other men. So, what is the...
What's that epidemic?
I think the value of knowing that there is that echo relationship, and whether you're just providing that echo, you know what I mean? And then being shocked that that person falls in love with themselves when all you're doing is showing
them themselves.
Yeah,
exactly.
And when you refuse to take on any of that.
Yeah.
And as a bigger picture, I love that we're going all over. I love this whole conversation.
Good,
Because
I'm
into it because it's timely.
Yeah.
As I try to, as a parent right now, in this world we're living in right now, and this whole Kavanaugh thing going on, and I mean, honestly, I don't follow a lot of the news and everything, but I know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how shocked people are by the Me Too movement, Trump. I keep over and over and again. I keep hearing, and I don't look on social media much, but I work in restaurants and bars, and I just hear all this constant chatter. How this is crazy. How could this be happening? And when you think about even that narcissism, like that story of narcissist, the one-sided versions that we've been telling men for a long, long time, and then we're super surprised that I'm telling you honestly, the version of narcissist that I heard, I would want to be. That is I'd rather be him than Echo.
Right.
So
Totally.
why would I possibly be like, let me emulate this side?
Right.
When we've glamorized, I'd rather be a vampire than the victim.
Right.
I'd rather be things. So if you're
but that's just how you orient, and that's very honest of you. And here's the thing: is that yes, pendulum does swing, and what's unfortunate is that society is largely unawakened or unevolved. And so if we just look at it like blaming, we're not going to go anywhere. If you can expand above and beyond it and just see that nature always seeks balance. So yes, there was a patriarchy. There is a patriarchy. And so as you astutely said you probably don't know a woman who every woman you know has a story about being in a relationship with a narcissist. Well, what that relationship of being with a narcissist afforded her, like it did me, my whole 20s were spent that way, the power to actually leave it, to really find find my power. So I pick up from this world that I'm born into, that a patriarchal kind of, energy. And so if I allow that to take me down, 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 then I have to dig myself up out of it, and how much stronger I must be to come out of that.
And that you wanted that.
Yeah, I did want that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Funny. Somebody said something to me about my getting sober, and they were like, "Oh, what a terrible thing that like, don't you wish that never happened?" or something like that. That I could have erased that. And I was like, "No, that is a huge part of who I am."
Right.
And I don't know how I would have gotten to here without it. Not to mention I had a really good time for a long time. But when I didn't, I needed that, and that's a huge part of my journey. I wouldn't want to lose that, like a graduate diploma. It was a huge part of my journey. And not because I'm like, oh, look, poor me, and look at how, I really rose out of the ashes. But I learned so much, and I don't even know as much about myself in any other regard as I do about that difficult time.
Well, you showed me what a powerful manifestor you are, because I was there. I witnessed when you had, you'd been sober for about a year, I think, and you had this moment where you were like, you had zero, and you told me I had nothing, so I wanted to go and serve, and so you had this miraculous thing happen this one day when Aidan was like this, and literally had nothing, and a lot of
financially
people depending on you, but you said,
yes.
But I have my back, but I have my strong body, and so you went and helped someone who needed some help that day because her body was compromised, an older friend, and by the end of that day, you had a $20,000 check and a job.
Yeah, yeah, that's a true story. So you
true.
can do that too.
Yeah.
That is it. Yeah, that is when you really get down to that baseline. I mean, I don't recommend it, but when you get to that point, and you're
there are easier ways to do it.
Well, I had worked really hard for my physical health to get it back. So
right.
I was like, who am I to say I have nothing? I remember we were talking, and it was a pivotal time and it was not a great time. But I was like, okay, all I asked for was my health back, because that's what I lost. And I had plenty of stuff when I had no health, So I got that back, and it was such a freeing moment. It's good to remember. It's good to visit your past self. That's the biggest thing. Like, visit it and be like, okay, what'd you ask for a year ago when you were dying and your fingernails were falling off onto the table? Like, all I asked for was my health. Now, the universe took all that shit away. The ability for me to buy one more drink was gone, but my health was there. I could have run a marathon.
And you believed in yourself in that regard again.
Yeah.
And so you began manifesting
but that's
more
awareness.
on top of that again.
I don't know where that comes full circle, but, I could have used a vampire at that time because I was so full of physical energy.
When you were just healthy and broke?
Yeah. Oh, my God. You're just vibrating.
Because you didn't have a job.
There's nothing worse than being in a room with a newly sober person.
Actually, I could see that, how you would produce a preponderance of vital life force energy.
I like that. And I could actually, we got to get a vampire. If there's vampires out there, I want one on the show. I super want one.
Yeah.
No,
there are.
Because I really actually, I could see how I could
reach out
be
to the author of that book I mentioned. I'll reach out to her.
I would like to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I could see somebody validating to me they're like being like, basically I'm just taking the head off a lot of these people who are too amped up.
Yeah, and there's obviously just as much of a moral spectrum there, because the person who wrote that book talked about it from a moral place of, like saying, I understand how to do this in a way that actually serves balance. And then there are, of course, people who do it in a dark sense where I've come upon people. I remember one time I was actually on a trail with a friend, and I was walking up, and I pinged this guy who was coming up. I pinged him as a vampire. And I said to my friend, I was like, say no. And she goes, what? I go, just say no. She goes, no. And I was like, no, say it like no. And she goes, no. And then we passed the person. She's like, "What?" And I was like, "That guy was a vampire, and I just wanted you to be able to be in the state of no, of like owning something."
Did he look like a vampire?
No, I felt him. He looked like a
Really?
regular person.
Wow.
And so I pinged him as that, and as we were walking by, and he was like, "Oh, hey," he tried to just talk to us, and I was like, "Yeah," but my friend was in this state of just like rejection, and like it shifted her field, even though she wasn't specifically saying no to something that she was aware of. It shifted her field in the way to like not accidentally pick up a chord from this person.
Yeah, I think that it's funny that like maybe 10 years ago it was all vampires. The vampire show, True Blood, and all that stuff was on, and now and then I'd say 3 years ago, and now it's kind of like leveled off. But zombies became this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like that became like, and I have to feel like it wasn't just because of the success of some of those films. It was like the universal subconscious, like the collective unconscious.
It always is, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that like everybody was so afraid of what was going on in the world, the powerlessness of it, and that we were just these masses driving, throwing ourselves off of cliffs. I mean, like, it was like we were getting more sort of serene and technical, but that we were relating to the fact that we were mindless.
Mindless
And
mindless
out of control.
consumers. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
It was so clear, right? Because they were all like running off a cliff and stuff like that, and there was like this weird, like even the stories don't work. Like they don't die ever, but then they would kill them real easy, like with a shovel. And I was like, wait, like if I could
What are the
kill
rules?
one of them with a shovel, there would not be millions ever. Like if Aaron became a fucking zombie right now, we could kill him with a shovel. That's it. Boom, it's over.
That's how it goes.
But then a million bullets can go in it's the cheapest storyline ever.
It's Walking Dead. I never watched it.
It's such bullshit. There's like a tidal wave of electric fucking, atomic energy drops on them, and they all jump up and come back at them again. But then one 6-year-old girl throws like a cornflake at it, and it dies. It's the cheapest storylines ever. And they're all huddled in a shack somewhere. But then all of a sudden they run across big open fields and nobody bugs them. Like, I hate it because it's such a cheap writing trick.
Because they aren't true to their own book.
No. And there's totally random new ways. And here's the biggest cheap trick. I'm talking to you, Hollywood. The morphing disease that changes as the film goes. You don't get to make up new rules. They all die the same way from story one to the end of the story. You don't get to be like, oh, and now they die from rubber bands. And now rubber bands don't kill them. And that bullshit. You're just coming up with a new... It's like 5, 6-year-olds wrote this story.
Yeah.
Now a big rubber ball killed them all.
I hate that too. I hate when they betray their own book. It drives me crazy. And
This one came back as a caterpillar.
like, try harder.
Fuck you.
All right. So but let's get back. So that's Aidan's rant about poor Hollywood writing.
Are you listening to me, Directors Guild?
Hollywood.
Write another bullshit story about a fucking, phone that takes over the world and then explodes in a 5-year-old's hand.
Oh, well, you know what I love? There was some network TV show a few years back, and it was like, all of the electricity has been pulled out of the planet. I was like, then why are the humans walking around? Our bodies run on electricity, dumbasses.
Oh, look at you, right?
Yes, the nervous system is electricity.
Yeah, I know. How about like read a book before you write one?
Yeah.
Just one.
I'm like, how did you
They're
make
like,
that
in
techno jargon work?
1776 when Mayflower landed in Plymouth.
Yeah.
No.
I don't remember the name of that show, but anyway. But I think that's very astute of you that it was all about zombies. It was all about mindless consumerism and disempowerment and and monsters. Yeah. So what is coming up now? What do we foresee by analyzing the collective unconsciousness? If we're looking at big bad, it's kind of
let's see if we can
is?
predict the next writer's wave. What's happening we're at Sunsets at Gower Studios, right?
I think it's big monsters.
There's 55 millennials crammed into every 2x4 box in this whole building, writing some crap right now.
I'll bet you it's monsters, but I'll bet you it's bad monsters.
It's definitely like Pentagon monsters.
Well, no, I
think it's
think
going to be all political.
it's probably going to be aliens. It's probably going to, or actually, maybe it's just the thing that I talked about last week. But see, the reptilians wouldn't let that happen. You asked me last week where the reptilians were from. They're from Draco. I couldn't remember Draco last week. So, yeah, from the Draco.
I'll tell you what it's not going to be, because nobody will touch it consumer-wise.
Yeah.
It's not going to be anything about Me Too or any of the sort of gender stuff that's going on. It's not going to be, nobody's going to touch that in any script or any TV show.
No. Well, we've had enough of it. I think we're exhausted
Well, we've
from
had
it.
enough of it, and also people won't buy shit. Nobody's buying a lady speed stick right after, a guy that got, whatever the storyline is about that.
There's a lady speed stick story?
No, there's a lady speed stick commercial that has to happen somewhere in the middle of that story.
Oh, I see.
And
I thought somebody got violated with a lady speed stick, and I'd missed this. Some congressman.
I used to joke about eating them.
I thought some congressman and had
Probably. That's a story. So wait,
So
now
you
what
have
were
to
you
watch
saying?
the show. I just
So
did a
the
hand
reptilian-
gesture. That's so with the lady speed stick. What? Sorry.
Me too. Wait, so the reptilian thing, which, by the way, I haven't signed off on 100% yet.
Okay.
I have not.
They actually even made a joke about the reptilians on
About
SNL. On SNL week before last.
I
Michael
probably
Che
bartended that party.
Michael Che on Weekend Update, he mentioned something about like, conspiracy theory with lizard men and stuff like that. He was totally referring to the cabal.
Does this have to do with the cabal? But does the cabal have to do with what's that other big religious thing that was a movie and stuff like that? The whole what's the other conspiracy theory that includes like Aristotle?
The Illuminati.
Yes. That's a thing.
Yeah, it's all traced to that kind of stuff. Yes, it definitely is.
Does it exclusively include like white men?
I don't know if it exclusively includes them.
Because I still happen to carry that card. I hope that's still the way into the Masonic temple.
I can just see that you are actually Caucasian.
Super.
Because I got my eye surgery.
I might have fucked it up a little bit with the fluid sexuality card, but I can break that out in Apocalypse, and I can tear that off.
Well, they're very much into sexual perversion, so.
Yes, I'll put on
the
a
problem
mask.
is that you're out about it.
The fuck about it.
But you're out about it. That's the problem.
I'm telling you, I think I've bartended at a few of those parties.
You probably did.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right? And woke up with a lady speed stick in my ass.
It's actually
we're killing ourselves today.
It's actually quite a week.
I hope my mother's
implement.
Not listening. This is the week I'm hoping my mother hasn't figured out her computer, which luckily will take a good long time.
Well, if she,
do you have this call with your mom? I mean, I don't know how often you call, but do you have this call with your mom? Hold on, wait a second. I can't get this thing. I don't know what it's doing. Hold on.
No, I know.
Why? I don't. Every time.
It's not working for me today. That's what I like.
2 minutes of the phone conversation is about the phone, and it's been that way since we had hardline phones. Yeah. So this isn't even like a just this phone thing. It's been like that for years. God forbid there's a headset involved.
Does she have a headset?
All the things.
No, my mother
exhausting.
My mother didn't want to have direct deposit back in the late 80s, I think it was, or maybe it was in the 90s when they started doing direct deposit paychecks.
Because they could steal your info.
Oh, no, worse than that. Crazier than that. She thought it was the beast. She thought it was Armageddon. It was a sign of the times, like it was going to be that's how the beast is going to get you. And so she basically, she was just scared because of the whole fire and brimstone evangelical fairy tale that's not actually even in the Bible. Not that the Bible is necessarily sound, you know what I mean? Like it was written by some dudes and rewritten, and it's written by dudes today. And
rewritten by the Irish, by the way, which means there's a lot of loose interpretation and barroom banter tossed in. I mean, and I love that we take credit for rewriting the Bible. During the Dark Ages, because they all the books disappeared during the Dark Ages.
Why the Irish?
The Irish were on an island during the Dark Ages in the Black Plague.
You were the literate ones?
Ireland didn't get the Black Plague in Europe. The Black Plague wiped out.
In 1300s.
Right, all that. So after that.
How? Because it was
all over
England.
Have you ever read the book, How the Irish Saved Civilization?
No.
It's a thing. Speaking of Illuminati, read that.
That's actually my heritage as well.
Right. So we supposedly saved the written word. The written word was lost during you're talking about 400 years of that.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Supposedly, they take credit for it. But so then the Irish rewrote all this stuff that we're talking about all the way back to, David and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not super religious, so I don't know.
Well,
but I did read How the Irish Saved Civilization so that I could borrow and bullshit about it.
Oh,
and I have the elevator version of it, for sure, like everything else.
Oh, we are just about out of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we are.
I enjoyed hearing myself talk today.
Well, you have a couple of minutes.
Speaking of...
What would you like to...
We validated how narcissism really works for you.
Narcissism. Well, here's the thing. I would encourage folks to read Dr. Craig Malkin's book, Rethinking Narcissism.
I'm gonna.
And just
also
consider
how the
balance.
Irish saved civilization.
Yeah, and consider balance. Consider if you are in a situation, and that could even be if you're recognizing this in society.
Well, know your enemy as well. If you think that the enemy is narcissism,
just think about if you're
get to know how that happened.
You can just look at it logically too. Even if you're an extremely liberal person living in Los Angeles, and you're like, all of these Trump, right wing, they're just narcissists and they're just bullies. Well, guess what? We do have to vote. That's just even in this how the system exists. You have to be able to. We do have a kind of democracy. You do actually have to move them out, and you have to. So even in this system that exists, there is balance that says you can't just sit back and be an echoist.
It's a stupid rabbit hole to go down constantly because there are a lot of Bible Belt, super conservative, or let's just say religious people who believe in their faith, who are certainly altruistic and care a lot about their families and other people and probably not narcissistic at all. So then you're just dumping ignorance into selfishness or all onto people who are well-read, well-spoken, and have these beliefs. Like that's how we're losing so much of these conversations. I mean, if you really want to win the conversation, know both sides of it at least.
I agree.
It's you find, and if you want to get rid of the narcissist in your life, figure out what makes them tick, and it might be you.
Right, exactly. And find an emotional neutral place. And also, it's all about bringing the sovereignty back. So that's how you actually find a neutral place about what's going on in politics, is realize that that's not your big bad daddy who's in charge of you. People put too much emotional credence into who's in charge of politics. Now, I obviously, we know they're making laws and they are oppressing and they are harming, they're separating children from parents, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when you lose your absolute shit because there's a new president in office, that second, see, you're creating experience that isn't happening yet. So just for example, a snapshot there, but to realize that you're actually sovereign, you're actually your own agent. And that's a place to start to have that space of objectivity so that we can make the changes with clarity. We need clarity to make the changes. All right. We are actually now really out of time, but I want to tell you guys that we are here Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific. Maybe we'll have a guest next week. Let's see. I feel like
we will. When didn't we talk about...
If you're a vampire, then come and be on our show.
Because we were into it.
We're into it, yeah.
Unless, of course, you...
Follow us.
We might be unleashing the Kraken.
Follow us on social media by looking for @Enlightened AF Pod. We are on YouTube. Find us on YouTube, Enlightened AF Podcast, and also subscribe, like, share, comment, review on iTunes. iTunes, look for Enlightened AF. It has our adorable faces, and we'll see you next week, Wednesday, live at 4 p.m. Pacific. Follow us on social media @Enlightened AF Pod. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye.